I'm Kiera Morgan. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Coffee with Kiera, sponsored by The Human Being in Newport and Lincoln City. And I'm excited to be side by side with my wonderful guest, State Senator Dick Anderson. Hello.
Thank you for having me. It's great. And the coffee, I'm a big fan of Human Being, by the way.
They are wonderful. So, Senator Anderson just came out of the short session, and you are always hopping and always busy, whether it's here on the coast or in Salem. Let's start on the coast. Recently, a wonderful ribbon cutting at the Safeway for a brand new bottle drop. Let's talk about that.
And it is brand new, serves the north end of Lincoln County and the southern part of Tillamook County. It's bags only, so it's a little different than their store in Newport, their operation in Newport. But what this allows is those of us who collect cans with deposits and bottles and glass, we can set up accounts privately for a green bag or for non-profits, blue bag, and actually dispose of those bags here at Safeway. It's a lot more convenient. You don't have to drive, use all that expensive gas.
Yeah,
and
you
time.
use up your money you get on the gas to get there.
So yeah, it's great to have it, and it doesn't come easy. The cooperation with Safeway has been great, and actually for me, I'm excited because for the Senate district, actually bottle drops in Tillamook, now Lincoln City, Newport, Florence, and soon to be in Coos Bay with a new building. So anywhere I go, I can drop off my cans, and people in the district. But it's taken a bit of lobbying. Representative Gomberg and I have been tenacious with the bottle drop people that this is a need, and to work with Safeway and get it cooperated. But it's great to see it happen. It'll be good for Safeway. It's good for the people in North County. So.
Well, and I want to point out another thing that you've been very involved in changing some legislation, actually. This came to my attention through Small Business Development Center, Misty Lambrecht. I'm in one of her classes, and we were talking about childcare. She teaches how to start a childcare business and helps walk folks through that. And that kind of came to a grinding halt because of some legislation. Can you that you helped to actually change? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, and you're right. It's a real plug to the Small Business Development Center out of our community college, local community college. Because they put on a series of programs to help introduce people that want to get into the childcare business. And I'm always interested, one, in childcare because we just don't have enough of it on the coast, and it's getting in the way of any kind of recovery. So I am very interested in that. So I actually, for the heck of it, attended the first opening class in Newport on the Newport campus. And it was there that I heard first time about an existing statute that was requiring new child care facilities to have sprinkler systems, even in houses. And I couldn't believe it, but I stayed with the class, thinking out loud that, boy, this is a real deal breaker, because those are expensive, and unless you own your property, how are you going to get a sprinkler system in a rental, all this kind of stuff. So, we started exploring, were we the only ones? Were others aware of it? And we threw a wide net, Representative Gomberg to Representative Power, who chairs a committee, a child care committee on the House side, to see if everybody knew about this. And it was just starting to percolate out as an issue. And so we pushed it on the Senate side, and I think came to a final, and this is all pre-short session. So one of the things that I was even doing was holding one of my priority bills open, in essence not using it, in case we needed some legislative fix. And change the subject, but short sessions you're only allowed 2 priority bills. So that was important to keep one open in case we did. And finally, we found a way. We got the governor's office involved, other representatives, other senators, and it didn't need legislative fix. They were able to make a change. And it's not the best, but it certainly allows for it to move ahead and not have sprinklers. There put some concern always is the safety of the child. And so some of the fixes that we allowed is where you can have the actual child caring area in the house and the escape routes, away from ovens and whatnot. But those are all doable versus a sprinkler system.
So we had the short session that just wrapped up not too long ago.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the important highlights of that.
Well, I think the important thing is, it's a 35-day short session in even years. The voters approved that. The intent during that 35 days is to just work on fixes and budget items, kind of emergencies. Because prior to this short session, those kind of things were handled by a small group of legislators called the Emergency Board. And, when there's 90 electeds, all 90 of us like to be involved in everything. Acquiescing responsibility to just a handful didn't go over too well. So this, in theory, should work better. The things that I think about right off the bat is $2.7 billion we added in the short session to an already existing overinflated budget that we did in the long session. $2.7 billion. That's a lot of money, just a lot of money. And we dispersed it, and I say we, collective legislature, dispersed it in all areas. Certainly, housing got another run of millions of dollars in all different areas of housing. Kids through education, child care, health care, and behavioral health. Probably the difference this time, we did a lot of trying to help the workforce through money in buckets that would be used to try to retain people in all these fields, because somehow money makes it, makes it better. When you're worn out and tired of working all those hours, a bonus or something. But again, more importantly for me anyway, is raising those salaries to a level, especially in the healthcare industry, behavioral health, childcare, to where we have resources on the coast. And it's that's the important piece for me. We've got to get more professionals on the coast delivering the kind of services that our constituents need. Other things up and down the coast, the Elliott Forest, was put into a research now forest. The controversy around that was certainly the value of the timber and the land, because it was originally established where when logged, that would be into the common school fund. Instead, a lump of money, $215 million, went into the school fund kind of as a pay, and then will be self-sustaining. But it's open to the public. It's a research. OSU is doing the research. The school kids will be using it as a place to go and nature walks and everything else, learning how an active forest operates. So it's awesome. Still in an educational format. So that went on. And then the Forest Accord was an area also that started prior to the long session last year, where a bunch of people through the governor's office and the timber industry and environmentalists got together to work out a plan of how we're going to manage forests going further. And they put together a program that has ended up being approved by both Senate and House. The disappointed piece for me was not everybody was at the table. And this is a repeating occurrence. The stakeholders who are affected aren't always involved. And
Is it because they just don't know that this is happening? Is it a communication issue? What's your theory on that?
yeah, well, in this case, it was they weren't invited to the table. And I speak wholeheartly about the tribes. In my Senate district, the Senate District 5, I have 4 of the 9 recognized federal tribes, and all the tribes, to one course or another, are in the timber industry, and they just weren't invited to the table, and that's a disappointing thing. So I voted against the accord, quite frankly, knowing that it would pass anyway, but it was the only way I could make a statement on behalf of the tribes for not having them at the table. And also there was a small group of small woodland owners that also got kind of nixed, the real small guys that had bought some land, had some timber, and just weren't being compensated. So that's part of the politics involved. It's controversial. I'm sure I'll hear about it for voting no on that one, but it wasn't a no vote knowing that it would not pass.
Right, there was a reason behind
it was a protest vote, because I think, especially the tribes, because that's one of my bills, back to a priority bill, one of my bills that I did put forward was the trying to put more emphasis on government-to-government conversations, consultation, specifically with tribes and the state of Oregon, because they've been left out of the conversation on issues that impact them. And it's not just gaming, but timber was a good example, fishing, now all the natural resources, water, and so interesting, this statute already exists, but what we found was there needs to be more clarification around what consultation means. And so one of the bills that didn't make it through was actually to pay legislators more money. I wasn't in favor of that. It didn't come up for a vote. They never could get enough votes, but the idea was that people are being excluded from the opportunity because they can't balance life with just being a legislator, and their real jobs or paycheck jobs don't work well with legislature because of the time and stuff. So there's a lot going on. I mentioned one of the other fixes that we had the opportunity to fix actually was, again, in Lincoln County, was the electronic recycling.
Oh, yes.
Come to find out, there was an issue around electronic recycling is your computer's electronic gear, and you could drop off at recycling. So, we had earlier legislation around that. Well, they were going to close the drop-off sites in Lincoln County, and we got wind of it and went after it, and the we being Representative Gomberg and I, and just went full tilt on this can't happen, and again found a viable solution to extend it, and so we don't have to worry. We don't have to drive miles and miles to another location in the valley to drop off our electronics. We can do it right here in Newport and
Keep
Toledo.
on doing what we're doing. That's great.
So we're making progress. I think for me, housing is still an issue. Housing and child care, I put at the top of the list.
Thank you.
Behavioral health / mental health, and the physical health. There are 2 areas, again, reflective on the coast. We're lacking in professional. We're lacking with access as a result, and we need to get that up. And so that's high on my agenda.
Well, it's very difficult for folks to be able to hire. Lots of people want to hire. Did an interview with Lieutenant Nguyen, the Lincoln City Police Department recently, and he was talking about how it's difficult for them to recruit police officers and difficult for the city to be able to recruit folks to come and work because people are interested. There's just nowhere for them to live and nowhere for their kids to go.
You know what? I had an interesting opportunity, awareness this short session, because as I said, housing and your comment hits home. I had a bill, a committee bill, because I'm vice chair of the Senate Housing and Development Committee, and put forth a bill through the committee process that simply stated was before a legislator votes on a bill or a rule is made that might impact housing, up or down in costs, there has to be a financial impact statement so that I, as a voter, a legislator, would know what the financial impact is against that housing. Another way of saying it is, wouldn't it be a good idea to know, since we're in a housing crisis, and part of that reason is the cost of the housing, that we ought to know in advance that whatever you're doing is going to add to the cost or subtract from the cost of housing. I'm disappointed to say that the majority party voted that down. They, though I started out our conversation over coffee, was we did a lot with housing. We do a lot with housing of putting money in buckets for subsidies. We do not do much about, getting rid of barriers to get more housing out of the ground and available. It's a supply and demand, and that was my little attempt, because interestingly, that bill already exists, that statute already exists, a financial impact statement already exists, and it's existed since 95, 97. It's just not being complied with. And so that even makes it more shameful, I think. So you'll hear more from me about that. We can continue to put money in buckets for subsidies, but that subsidy is going to continue to grow as long as the product continues to be higher. And as I said, that's a supply and demand issue. We got to get more housing. So
You serve
from
Coos Bay?
Tillamook to Coos Bay.
Yeah.
Now that's today.
Subject to change without notice.
It is. It already has changed. So this election that's going on in November, fortunately I don't have to run because I have a 4-year term, but House reps who are running, Representative Gomberg, for example, his territory now switches, not, how do you say it? We're eliminating Tillamook County. We're eliminating Yamhill and Polk counties that we had, and we're moving into Benton County. So now we go all the way to Philomath.
Okay.
So almost to Corvallis. So we give up 7. We start with, and I say we because a House seat is part of a Senate seat. We give up these 3 counties that I named and pick up Benton County. So we go from 7 to.
So Tillamook County won't be part.
No, he'll be campaigning, for example, not in Tillamook County, but in Lincoln and Benton, and a little bit of Lane, and I then move on down also to Douglas and Coos.
Okay.
And Lane, I go in further towards the Fern Ridge Reservoir, so even further towards Eugene. So it's still a huge.
Keeping it more of the central area.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed because I like the entire coast.
We like Tillamook.
Yes, exactly. I do. So, but they'll get a good senator that comes down. So yeah, it'll be an interesting election year. So you'll get a lot of time to talk to candidates, I'm sure.
All right. Well, we need to wrap up. Thank you again so much for joining us on Coffee with Kiera. Is there anything else real quickly that you want to add as we wrap up?
Boy, I can't think. Can we do it again?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. As long as we can do it again.
As much as you like.
These things don't seem to change. What I've found, because as much, as I reflect on what I campaigned for in 2020, these issues are still that exist. Nothing's been fixed. I'd like
It's like
to say
taking the hammer against the rock.
it is. It's a long process, and shining the light, I think, on these issues helps. And I think, fortunately, I've been able to position myself into these areas so that I can hopefully make change as we move forward. So that's my objective. So,
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate everything that you do for the coastal areas and beyond. And thank you so much
love it.
for joining me on Coffee with Kiera.
Thank you.
For Oregon Coast Breaking News, I'm Kiera Morgan.